You know, every single day, one of the world's most iconic cities is fighting a silent battle against an enemy that's as old as time. It's this incredible fight for survival, happening right under everyone's noses. It's a story about brilliant engineering, deep history, and a future that's, well, kind of on the edge. So let's get into it and see how London is holding back the tide.
And that's really the question, isn't it? What stops one of the greatest cities in the world from just drowning? It might sound a little dramatic, but it's not a what-if scenario. London was built on its river, the Thames, but that very same river is also its biggest threat. The water that gave the city life could just as easily take it away. So, what's standing in the way?
Well, the answer protects this many people, 1.25 million. And we're not just talking about saving old buildings or protecting the economy. No, this is about the lives, the homes, and the communities of millions of actual people who live and work right in the city's heart. So, to really get why London needs something so massive, we've got to look back. For centuries, the city's low-lying geography was basically a ticking time bomb, a huge vulnerability that eventually was going to be exposed in the worst way possible. And then came the wake-up call, 1953. You had this perfect storm, literally, of crazy high tides and winds that were basically hurricane force. It sent this enormous surge of water barreling up the Thames. It was an absolute catastrophe, and it proved, without a doubt, that London was living on borrowed time. Something big, something radical had to be done. And, you know, out of that tragedy, a hero was born. Not a person, but this unbelievable piece of engineering, designed specifically to stand guard over the entire city. Let's talk about the Thames Barrier. So it was finished back in '82. It's essentially a line of 10 colossal steel gates that stand like these giant sentinels in the river. Each one is over 20 meters wide, and they just lie there silently on the riverbed until they get the call. And then they rise up to hold back the full, terrifying force of the North Sea. And how it actually works is, well, it's like a perfectly choreographed dance. As soon as danger is spotted, they stop all the boats, all the river traffic. Then, those huge gates pivot up from the river floor, they lock together, and boom, you have an unbreakable steel wall. Once the danger's gone, they just sink back down and disappear. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, it's this incredible shield, always on guard. But what's really at stake here? What is it actually protecting? The value this thing provides day in and day out is just immense. Okay, so we've got the 1.25 million people we talked about, right? But it's so much more. It's shielding the city's vital organs. We're talking hospitals, schools, the whole London Underground system, and Canary Wharf, which is one of the most important financial hubs on the planet. It protects the very fabric of life in London. And, of course, the money. The financial side of this is just mind-blowing. If the barrier failed, a single major flood could cause billions with a B, in damage. It would paralyze not just a city, but a pretty significant chunk of the global economy. But here's the really cool part. The barrier isn't just a big, dumb wall. It's so much smarter than that. It represents a whole new way of thinking, really, about how you can work with nature, not just fight against it. Okay, so to get this, there's this concept called differential vulnerability. Sounds kind of academic, right? But the idea is super simple. It just means that not everywhere is at the same risk. A skyscraper on a hill is obviously way safer from a flood than a hospital built in a low-lying area. And that, right there, is why the barrier is such a genius move. London is the textbook definition of a crowded, low-lying city. The barrier gives it targeted protection right where it's most vulnerable, which is also where the most people happen to be. All right, so here's the other big idea, dynamic equilibrium. This is all about using our engineering to kind of calm down the wild, unpredictable mood swings of nature. The point isn't to stop the river completely, but to create a stable, safe balance so the city and the river can exist together. And that's what makes it so smart, you know? It's not a permanent dam that just kills the river. Most of the time, the barrier is just chilling. The river flows, the tides come and go, ships pass right over it. It just steps in when things get really bad to stop a catastrophe. It maintains that crucial balance. But of course, the story doesn't end there. Our Steel Guardian, this incredible hero of engineering, is now up against a new and relentless enemy, one it wasn't really built for. The race is on all over again. See, when they built the barrier, they designed it to last until 2030. That seemed like a long time. But things are changing way faster than anyone back then could have predicted. It's now facing threats that are pushing it way beyond what it was originally designed for.
So, the enemy has changed. The barrier was built to stop those massive, but rare, once-in-a-thousand-year storm surges. The new threat? It's the slow, steady, and accelerating rise of sea levels because of climate change. And that's a constant pressure that changes the rules for every single tide.
So the fight is still on. Engineers and scientists are in this constant race against the clock, trying to figure out upgrades and new plans. It's all about what we call adaptive management. Basically, you have to constantly evolve your defenses because the threat is always evolving too.
And all of this really leaves us with one massive question, not just for London, but for pretty much every coastal city on Earth. The Thames Barrier proves that even our most amazing engineering marvels have a shelf life. So as the tide keeps rising, what do we do next?